Open Your Eyes is brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.
Good morning and welcome to Open Your Eyes.
Start your morning right. I am John Palacio.
And I'm Marlene Cuellar, and thank you for joining us this morning.
We're at half of the week. It's actually hump day, Marlene.
Day.
Yes, it's hump day, and the weather is fine here in the city. We hope that everything is A-OK in your neck of the wood. Speaking of the weather, we'll be chit-chatting about that in just a few. But nonetheless, we've got a packed day lined up for you, and we'll get directly into it by providing you with a little bit of motivation.
That's right. Time for Eye Opener, taken from dailyom.com, and it goes like this. There is beauty and power when we listen to the whisper. You may have noticed that if you want to speak to someone in a noisy, crowded room, the best thing to do is lean close and whisper. Yelling in an attempt to be louder than the room's noise generally only hurts your throat and adds to the chaos. Similarly, that still, small voice within each of us does not try to compete with the mental chatter on the surface of our minds, nor does it attempt to overpower the volume of the raucous world outside. If we want to hear it, no matter what is going on around us or even inside, we can always tune in to that soft voice underneath the surrounding noise. We may be less inclined to indulge in idle chatter as we become more interested in maintaining our connection to the whisper of truth that broadcasts its message like the sound of the wind shaking the leaves of a tree. As we align ourselves more with this quiet confidence, we become an extension of the whisper, penetrating the noise of the world and creating more peace, trust, and confidence.
Wait. There's beauty and power when we listen to the whisper. Whenever you read it, it's like I could actually see it. And there's a part in there that says you're in a noisy area, and it makes no sense for you to try and scream over it so somebody could get the message. Rather lean and then speak your mind, and you'll get it. It also speaks of what we're supposed to do with ourselves, within ourselves, and how we could listen and how we could actually fathom the information that is trying to be processed by our minds. Look, for the most part, and I also take from the back of the eye opener, as we align ourselves more with this quiet confidence, we become an extension of the whisper, penetrating the noise of the world and creating more peace, trust, and confidence. The word confidence stands out for me, Marlene, simply because as long as we learn how to, we will eventually be as confident as possible, and we'll carry our lives in the best way possible with the confidence we need to move on. Yeah. That's how I feel about it. I open, I try get to it. That's how I feel.
I just love that it outlines what is often considered a bit of an oxymoron, the idea of power and whisper. Something so light can carry power. And I think for me, that's the essence of what I get away from it. Yeah. That very stereotypically, the idea of power is large and loud and overpowering and aggressive. But that's not always the case.
Yeah, keep going.
That's not always the case. And so I think that very often, whether it's the utilization of your voice as a whisper or whether it's in how you approach things, it doesn't necessarily mean that all your power comes from this big presence. Yeah. Sometimes, and very often, it can come in a quiet, what people may see as meek is actually strategic, and it can be soft as a whisper.
I also got from it, Marlene, that because there's so many messages coming out of it, I also got from it that even though you might be one of those powerful people within your household, within your family, within your the people that you hang out with, sometimes it's not what you do or what you say, it's how calm that you are that would eventually show how best you could lead, rather than saying something or show the power by being as calm as possible and lead with the power. Yeah. And that's what I got from it as well. So this was a great eye-opener, a great way to start a Wednesday morning, a great way to start the hump.
All right.
Excellent.
And from your motivation for this morning, 2-hour weather update. Of course, we got to find out what's happening. We are in the hurricane season.
Yes.
There is a powerful storm out there. Not any threat to us. Don't worry. But still a very important reminder that we got to keep monitoring what's happening.
Indeed.
So we're going to tune into our weather update for today, courtesy forecaster Francisca Wellington.
Good morning. Generally fair weather prevails and will support mostly sunny skies today and partly cloudy skies tonight. Showers or thunderstorms will be isolated. This trend continues Thursday and Thursday night. Winds today will blow from the east 5 to 15 knots and seas will be slight. Low tides occur at 11:14 this morning and 9:37 tonight. High tides follow at 5:45 this evening and 4:03 tomorrow morning. Temperatures this afternoon peak at 80 Fahrenheit up in the Maya Mountains, 89 along the coast and 95 inland. The moon sets at 12:58 this afternoon and the sun at 5:42 this evening. In the sargassum forecast, there is a medium chance of sargassum affecting beaches, especially over northern Belize during the next few days. In the tropical weather outlook, at 3 o'clock this morning, Hurricane Sam was centered near 18.9 north, 56.2 west, or about 455 miles east of the northern Leeward Islands. Sam was moving to the northwest at 9 miles per hour with maximum sustained winds of 130 miles per hour. And that's the latest from the Belize Weather Bureau. Do have a pleasant day.
We're so thankful to you, Francisca Wellington, for providing us with the weather update on this cool Wednesday morning. You could see clear skies over Belize. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. But like she did mention, we're in the hurricane season, and so therefore we must be very vigilant, especially at the latter part of the hurricane season. We're ending September. We know that September 11th is actually the peak, but at the same time, the trajectory of those storms actually form now in our area. And so we've got to be very vigilant when it comes to that. All right. But it's a packed Wednesday morning, like we mentioned, and we need to get on with the show for this morning. We've got 3 segments lined up for you that definitely you'd want to be a part of. The first one, we'll be chatting with Minister Chris Koyi. We'll be discussing GOB's Blue Bond financing strategy and how they made the breakthrough for what we are in terms of the Blue Bond.
That's right. So that's an important update there from Minister Koyi. And we also have joining us this morning Minister of Home Affairs, Honorable Karim Musa. He's going to be talking to us about the ongoing situation of crime. Of course, the country is still grieving the loss of Dwayne Gabriel and how tragically his life came to an end. And this morning, we'll get to talk to Minister Musa about the crime-fighting strategy.
And in the third segment for this morning, it's going to be a conversation that surrounds World Maritime Day, World Maritime 2021. And this year they'll be celebrating under the theme Seafarers at the Core of Shipping Future. You might feel it's not a big deal, but it really is a big deal.
All right. And before we talk about that, we're actually going to be talking to Beltrade. So they are going to be talking about a survey that they have ongoing, and it's about building resilient MSMEs, micro, small, and medium enterprises. And so you can find out about how you can participate in the survey, why it's important that your voice is included, and we're going to have that in our lineup for today. So we have a lot to get into.
Indeed, we've got a lot to get into. We've got to take that break. Just before we do, Marlene, I've got a quick birthday shout out. Samantha Herrera. Happy birthday to you, Sammy. Her birthday was yesterday. From your entire family and, of course, from your friends, Jess, and the entire family, wishing you nothing but the very, very best. We'll take a break. When we come back, Minister Koyi will be joining us from Mexico. Stay with us. We'll be back.
It's a fact that with Smart, you get truly unlimited everything. Only with Smart, you get unlimited data anytime. While with the other guy, it's only double data on weekends. With unlimited data every day with Smart, there's no need to wait. So, it's a fact that our unlimited plans beat the competition. Stop being measured and told when to use your data and get unlimited talk, text, and data. Experience the true unlimited plans with Smart. That's a fact. Make the switch and live smart.
Good morning, sweetie. It's time for school.
Are you a teacher or public sector employee who is thinking of owning your new home? Get the keys to your new home with Belize Bank's all-inclusive mortgage, the best financing option in Belize for your new home purchase or construction. Inclusive of all mortgage-related fees, no down payment, affordable terms, amazingly low interest rates. Visit our nearest branch to speak to one of our financial advisors to discuss how you can be one step closer to owning your new home. Some conditions apply.
To decrease your risk of being bitten by infected mosquitoes, use proven personal protective methods too. Apply an effective mosquito repellent to exposed areas of skin according to manufacturer's instructions. Wear light-colored long pants and shirts while outdoors in the early morning and late afternoons. Further, protect vulnerable family members like pregnant women, children, the elderly, and persons who are unwell by using mosquito nets to sleep or rest, even during the day. Fight the bite and protect yourself and your family too from mosquito-borne diseases.
At Belize Diagnostic Center, we offer FDA-approved PCR testing for COVID-19. Get your results as quickly as 1 hour. Don't risk getting exposed to COVID-19 by going elsewhere. We take appointments, or we can come to your home or office using our concierge service with no additional fees. We have 10 locations countrywide. Call or WhatsApp us at 613-TEST. That is 613-8378 to schedule your test today.
The maritime industry is the main connector for global trade. Even in a worldwide pandemic, shipping has continued to transport more than 80% of world trade, including vital medical supplies, food, and other essential goods critical for the COVID-19 response. World Maritime Day provides the opportunity to highlight shipping and other maritime activities in Belize and across the globe. The Belize Port Authority, Imarbe, and Belize Coast Guard invite you to join them for the virtual celebration of World Maritime Day under the theme Seafarers at the Core of Shipping's Future. Join the event on Channel 5, Facebook, or YouTube on Thursday, September 30th at 10 a.m.
Today's COVID update is brought to you by Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price but stay for the service.
Welcome back to Open Your Eyes, and we're now moving into our first segment for the morning. And this one is going to be a discussion on GOB's Blue Bond financing strategy. Now, we've got on Zoom with us, all the way from Mexico City, Minister Christopher Coye, who is the Minister of State in the Ministry of Finance. Senor, buenos dias.
Good morning, buenos dias.
It's always nice to have you in, especially after a big breakthrough that our country has been fortunate enough to go through. Which exactly where I'd like to start. The Prime Minister made mention that we made a breakthrough with the bondholders. And I would like to start by finding out, how did we get to that breakthrough? What was the feeling like from you personally? And of course, with respect to how it's going to benefit the country. Let's start there.
Okay, well, in the how, I might end up talking forever. We went through a drawn-out process. We had a series of discussions, negotiations through our advisors, with the creditors committee group. Mm-hmm. Initially, we actually put forward more of a bond exchange as opposed to a cash offer. Yeah. Okay. But in the meantime, we were already negotiating with the TNC for in effect cash financing. When we ultimately got in a position that we were comfortable to integrate the process, then we started having that discussion over a cash offer, and it was over several months that we were negotiating over that cash offer. Yeah. But everything in effect is linked. When we met with the IMF, it was important for us to be firm and be clear as to what our plans were, our homegrown plan, and that we're credible in it. And I think the IMF team certainly believed in our approach and recognized that we did need that restructuring. And as such, they did include that in their staff report as one of their recommendations. And by including that in the recommendations and us going through that process of making the tough decisions with the adjustments to salaries and the slash of expenditures, they saw us following through on our plan, and that gave us heightened credibility with respect to both the IMF and the bondholders. They saw that we were willing to make the adjustments to improve our cash flow, given our unsustainable debt path. And that enabled us to have further, more real negotiations with the bondholders. So in a sense, we all played a part in it, not just us as a debt management team, but all of us in terms of the public service, the teachers, and across the board in terms of the support we got, even in the Senate, for the decisions that we had to make.
So let's dive into the latest announcement, which is that so far government has been able to secure almost 85% of bondholders with the existing offer. My question is, Minister, the last time you were here, you had already gotten the agreement of 50% of the bondholders. What do you think was the push for the 35% to accept the offer in less than a month?
Well, I think it's all part of the process. This is more the advisors' involvement and their belief as to or their expectations as to what we would be seeing if we go out formally into the market. Remember when we had that discussion about the creditors committee group having agreement in principle? We at that point had not launched a formal offer. That was just the discussions and negotiations at that point in time with the creditors committee group. I would highlight at that point in time that there was actually one member of the original creditors committee that had actually withdrawn from the creditors committee group because they didn't agree with that initial position. But nonetheless, when we reached the stage of that agreement in principle of almost 50%, our advisors felt it that we were at a point that we could go there and achieve that 75% threshold. They again advised us in terms of the timelines and the deadlines. The November 19 being that settlement date, but putting together a shorter timeline within which the 55 cents on the dollar could be accepted by the bondholders that would sign up. That created that incentive, that extra little incentive for them to sign up earlier. And of course, on the PR end, well, certainly the advisors, that's where they make their money, their bread and butter. Their trading desk. They work with the bondholders to convince them, and as well the creditors committee group, having reached that bargain with us, felt that was the best bargain that they could get. So they again would be lobbying for us as well. So they played a key role in that process to getting us to the 75% threshold. So it's a combination of things. The PR side, certainly having the connection with marine conservation, and in this time, how important climate change and looking at conservation is. I think the overall PR effort does play a role as well.
Yeah. Now, a key factor here is looking at the collective agreement. Moving past the 75% threshold means that all bondholders will have to accept what is essentially, if you put it as plainly as possible, it is a loss on their investment. They're taking 55 cents for the dollar.
Yes. It's useful to bear in mind that bondholders, there's a spectrum of points at which they buy in. You do have some bondholders that bought from the very initial stage when the bond was issued way back in, what was it, 2007 or thereabouts. And they would have bought at par value, which means they bought at 100 cents on the dollar. But this is a private sector bond, and it trades on the market, on the international markets, bond markets. So many of those that initially bought would have sold their bonds already. Maybe they sold at a loss back then, and some of the existing bondholders would have bought in at a reduced price. If you look at the recent history or medium-term history of the performance of the bonds, in large part, the bonds traded at in the mid-60s, mid to high 60s. So yes, there might have been a loss to those initial bondholders of that 45% discount, but the others, they might not have lost much. And as well, the bonds would have traded at various points in time. For example, back in 2008 or thereabouts, I think the price of the bond went way down to around 30 cents. It came back up, but some would have bought in around then. So there are some bondholders that actually would have made some money on this, although it's discounted on this amount. So overall, you have some, yes, that in quotes suffered massive losses, but others not so much.
So the remaining percentage of bondholders, the October 15th extended deadline, explain to us what the expectation is here.
In terms of the October 15th deadline, that's really to get others to sign up. But in reality, in the case of all those that have accepted after September 24th, really the price that they will get is 51.7 cents. They will not get the 55 cents on the dollar. The 3.3 cents of past due interest only is payable or to be paid out to those that signed up before and up to September 24th. As we go through this period to October, mid-October, there's a lot of effort on the legal end, putting together the legal documents, both with respect to the super bond and ultimate cancellation of that super bond, but also in terms of the blue bond financing and firming the terms, the financial and legal terms up for the blue bond. So there's a lot of work that still needs to be done. And that's why, in a sense, we gave ourselves the option to extend up to November 19th.
Minister, there's a tricky matter with the remaining bondholders. There are Venezuelan bondholders, and what happens to them in being able to resolve this matter?
Well, in terms of Venezuela, we went through a process where, of course, we have to get proper legal advice. Venezuela, and I presume it's related entities are sanctioned by the OFAC, the Office of Foreign Assets Control of the U.S. Treasury, I believe. So in effect, we cannot really deal with them. We can't make payments to them. And we haven't for a period of time since they have been so sanctioned. So in fact, Belize has accumulated payables to Venezuela under the Petrocaribe debt. Not to mention the super bond portion which they may have. But in going through this process, we didn't have a firm position on Venezuela, and to protect this process, our legal advice was that there has to be a certification in effect of whether or not you are eligible by saying whether you are OFAC sanctioned or not. If you are OFAC sanctioned, then you're not eligible to participate in this tender, in this consent solicitation. So Venezuela would not have been able to participate in this process if they held shares or bonds. So this 84%, if Venezuela held bonds, would not have included Venezuela in meeting that threshold. However, bear in mind that ultimately we have a threshold, this collective action clause, that once we exceed that threshold, then the offer and the consent solicitation applies to 100% of the bondholders. So the bonds will ultimately be cancelled, and the proceeds for this cash would be placed with the indenture trustee, which I think is Bank of New York, and they would hold those funds. Now, if Venezuela is still OFAC, is still holding bonds and they're sanctioned, remain sanctioned by OFAC, those monies cannot be paid to them. But if they are ultimately removed from that sanction list, then they can be paid from the trustee. Those monies.
Let's bring it home for a moment. This is a very big accomplishment in looking at the economic recovery plan and the debt management plan that this administration has put forward. But let's talk about what the actual savings are for the country and how it impacts our cash flow.
Yes, I think Prime Minister has referenced some of the savings, and in a nutshell, what we're doing is with that level of discount. Recall that the principal debt under the super bond was about 1.1 billion, a little more than 1.1 billion. What this renegotiation will accomplish is reduction of debt by almost $500 million. So in effect, reducing it to a little over $600 million. That's no small change. At the same time, especially in these difficult, challenging times that we have economically and fiscally in particular, cash flow relief will be achieved at a significant level over the period of this administration, or 5-year period. The cash flow savings will add up to around $130 million. That obviously is substantial when we look at the fiscal deficits that we have been having and we had last year. So to close that gap and trying to get towards a primary surplus, we needed to make some major efforts in cutting expenditures. And in terms of cutting expenditures, that includes, yes, the wage bill, but also the other expenditures, as well as debt servicing obligations. And so that's why we've gone hard into renegotiating this, getting a reduced cash flow on the super bond, but it's not limited to the super bond. I think in some previous presentation, I mentioned about Taiwan, or the Prime Minister mentioned about Taiwan, and the significant cash flow relief that we will get through the rescheduling of loans and the principal moratorium for 3 years with Taiwan of around $80 million. So all of that certainly will help for us to close the gap, if you will, and be in a better position in terms of fiscal space.
I just want to be really precise here, because when we talk about that, it doesn't mean that we have the cash in hand. It means we don't have to find this money to pay our debt.
Exactly. As an example, recall earlier in the year, And really this was a follow-up from last year. The government was borrowing roughly $1 million a day just to pay regular bills. We have turned that around, and no longer are we borrowing that $1 million a day. But that doesn't mean that now we have cash. That means that we are simply not borrowing to pay bills, to pay recurrent bills. So we are still in a tenuous position in terms of what it is our cash flow that allows us to actually spend. And so when we look at all this effort, yes, we are saving all those monies, and there's all this cash flow relief, but we are basically at a negative. We are trying to reach to a positive. When we have a positive cash flow, then yes, we can look at what additional efforts we can introduce that were committed under Plan Belize.
One of the things I like about having these conversations is that it actually brings a well-rounded, or there's a picture now that is being formed from what has been discussed with the bondholders and how our country is being put in a place that should be better. But after all that you've mentioned a while ago, how will that help the country? Now we're not borrowing $1 million a day again, which of course is some relief. How will it help the country and GOB?
Well, unlike the private sector, the role of government is not to maximize profits or maximize shareholder wealth. It is to enhance or uplift the community, the citizenry, and to enable opportunities. So to the extent that we move away from running deficits, and we are in a position where we can invest in public goods, that's where we can do a lot more. And in terms of public goods, what are those? Certainly, at least I would tell you personally from my experience, the really only long-term investment that will pay off for each and every one of us and all of us is in education. It certainly is for me is a passion, and I'm sure for Minister Fonseca is as well, and for this administration. Yeah. And I think that is an area where we can invest heavily in. And I think one of the pilot projects that the minister is looking at, and I think he has already mentioned, is in piloting free education on the south side, with a longer term view to expand that across the country, certainly at high school level. Yeah. So that is just one example. But then we also have to look at healthcare, to invest much more into healthcare. And so as we are in a better fiscal position, we're not reactive, we are proactive in helping to build a better country, and doing so through public investment.
Yeah, that I think that's a great example when you think of not paying this money back in debt, but instead investing it in things like education and health. It's a great way to see how this agreement can have an impact. But while there is cause for celebration, to look at the fact that you have gotten 86%, about 85% of bondholders to be able to agree to the offer, the deal isn't finalized as yet. The next phase now is hammering out the details with the Nature Conservancy. Talk to us about what are some of the matters that still must be resolved or agreed upon before this agreement reaches its finalization point.
Well, I think first and foremost, I have to express on behalf of the government our sincere gratitude and appreciation for the efforts of the Nature Conservancy. I think they have for years been a key partner in conservation, in Belize, not only in marine conservation, but for conservation in Belize in general. And this is just a continuation of that effort in Belize and helping Belize in the forefront and putting Belize in the forefront of conservation on a whole. The Nature Conservancy is obviously the key player and in effect the key arranger for the procurement of this blue bond financing. Ultimately, that structure is not necessarily a loan from the Nature Conservancy, but in fact a private market transaction that they play an arranger role in fact. Credit Suisse in effect is the underwriter of those blue bonds. And ultimately, the financing will come from blue bondholders. And it's a little bit of a complicated structure, but that is where the funds really will be coming from. It's a very innovative transaction that will involve certain financial terms that enable us to, yes, gain cash flow relief, but also beyond the debt relief that we are getting, but also that it helps us, for example, to look at situations where we might have natural disasters. So it encompasses and includes catastrophic risk insurance, so that in the event that we might have natural disasters and are not able to pay or would be better off focusing some of our funds to dealing with those natural disasters as opposed to servicing that catastrophic risk insurance will support us during that period of time. So there are many features that we have in this bond structure that are quite positive for Belize. But at the same time, we have to make sure that we at all times seek to get the best deal for Belize. Similarly, as much as I can say that I appreciate the efforts of the TNC, we had to negotiate with the TNC on the land trust at the same time. And just as well with this, we have to negotiate to try and get that best deal for Belize. So yes, we have conservation commitments. We do have financial terms that we try to negotiate so that our financial exposure is fair and reasonable, and similarly on the conservation commitments, that exposure is fair and reasonable. So with respect to the conservation commitments that we are working through right now, I think probably one of the main commitments that we are, I think, in principle agreeable to is the commitment on the biodiversity zones. And what we are looking at is to increase that commitment on biodiversity zones, which are both high and medium biodiversity zones, to 30%. Belize had previously made commitments on that to roughly to 30%, but by 2030. That's a combination, and I should explain a little bit in terms of what a high biodiversity zone is versus a medium. A high biodiversity zone is what they also refer to as a no-take zone. So you can't do anything, no fishing or anything like that. Whereas a medium biodiversity zone allows for sustainable fishing and other activities. What the commitment is that 15% is made up of high biodiversity zones and another 15% by medium biodiversity zones. We've agreed to essentially move that up by 4 years, from 2030 to roughly 2026, over a 5 period from the date from conclusion of our bond financing arrangement. So that's essentially what we've agreed to. Now, that's not for us to go from 0 to 30. We're already somewhere between 15 and 20%. And so
it's an
that
additional
moves
10%.
from 20 to that 30% that we are committing to. But at the same time, that commitment largely will be for those zones to be located in the exclusive economic zone. Those are areas where we are hardly utilizing at this point in time. So the impact on the fisher folk, I don't think will be significant. And in a sense, the Conservation Trust Fund that we are in fact pre-funding and will continue to fund over the next period of 19 years, applications will be able to be made to that fund to look at how adjustments, not only in terms of marine conservation, but for fisher folk as well, to support sustainable human development and support for them. So it's quite comprehensive in terms of what
it seems so.
That's a very important clarification to make, because I know when you talk of no fishing zones, it makes people nervous when you're talking of marine conservation. But before, I know we're running out of time real quickly, but let's put this into perspective here. Belize has a national debt of $4 billion, and that's billion, B. You were speaking of the savings of this particular agreement when it's finalized of taking off $500 million, but that still leaves us in a very precarious situation. What's the plan in being able to move forward to manage the remaining debt?
I mentioned about Taiwan,
yes,
and what we're looking at there. That won't reduce the debt, but that improves.
Seems that there's a break in transmission there for a moment. Let's see if we'll be able to get him back online. Minister, are you still with us? Yes. Okay. So if you're just tuning in, and of course, just to provide an update, that is a response I was looking forward to hearing when we're talking about acknowledging what this particular renegotiation for the super bond has in impact for us now, but also keeping our eye on the ball that there still is an overwhelming amount of debt that the country still needs to tackle.
And I think that as soon as we get him back, of course, we'll be discussing the way forward with that. But the numbers are definitely alarming. But we must put into perspective that it's not only our country that would see of themselves in a debt such as that. But definitely there are plans to move forward to eventually try and curb or curtail what
we have him back on the line. Somebody tried to boot you off Zoom, so we don't answer that question. I'm kidding. But yes, let's get into that response. How do we manage the remaining
remainder
debt?
of the debt, yes.
I think you're on mute.
Can you hear it?
Yes.
We can hear you.
Yes, I was mentioning about Taiwan when we got cut off. But that's not reducing debt, that's just improving cash flow for us. But we are looking at external debt and domestic debt. But external debt is, of course, the greater concern because we are a currency-pegged jurisdiction. So we are looking at other areas where we may be able to renegotiate. And when you look at our breakdown of external debt, there's not much room for us. We have some bilateral debt with certain countries, and then we have multilateral debt, mainly with the IFIs. I don't know that that's an area where we will be looking in any significant way at, but that's what we're looking at, and hopefully over the next few months we are able to come with some good news on further debt reductions.
And just lastly, in terms of the image, and I think you noted earlier kind of just the PR aspect of this particular agreement. TNC now boasts this as the biggest sovereign debt for conservation swap. But what does this mean for us in moving forward, renegotiating terms, or even accessing additional financing?
Yeah.
I think there was an interview believe it might have been with Love FM and Carl Ross a few weeks ago, when the indication was that there was an agreement in principle with the creditors committee group. And one of his comments was that Belize probably will be excluded because of this kind of transaction where there is this massive loss to bondholders. Belize would probably be excluded from the international bond markets forever. I think that kind of comment has been said about Argentina. Argentina has gone through various debt restructurings. And as time goes by, you see Argentina entering the international bond market quite frequently. So I won't be, I won't take such an ominous position as far as where Belize's future stands in terms of the private sector international credit market. I do think that we will have an opportunity in the international markets for raising financing. That is not necessarily a priority for us right now. As I said, our focus is trying to build our economy in large part through export development and ensure that we more than stabilize, but provide a bedrock for our currency peg for the foreseeable future. Yeah. So that is where our focus will be on attracting investment in Belize. And in terms of attracting investment, that's both local and international. Thus, I can speak to the investment summit that is upcoming November 10th and 11th of this year.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. And that will be right before the settlement date. So it's also, I know, a very important step in being able to let investors know all the moves that we're making to try to make Belize a more attractive investment for them. Minister, we promised to get you out of here early. I know you have a lot to get into there in Mexico City on that state visit, but we appreciate the update on where we are with this process.
Indeed. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Have a good day.
You too.
All right. We're about to take a break. When we come back, though, like we mentioned, we've got a packed morning for you. We'll be discussing crime strategy fighting methods. Minister Karim Musa is going to be in with us. Of course, he's the Minister of Home Affairs. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
This COVID update was brought to you by Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service. Working off-site doesn't mean you have to be off your game. Studies have shown that simply adding a keyboard and mouse to your laptop increases productivity by 26%. Add a monitor, and you'll be 35% more productive. At Fulltech Systems, we have what you need to enhance your remote work or e-learning experience. With devices such as headsets, video conferencing monitors, webcams, keyboards, mice, docking stations, all with the brands you trust. Keep connected with collaboration tools like Microsoft 365 Suite and Kaspersky and perform efficiently no matter where you are. Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service.
My name is Dr. Gabriela Guerra. I am the wife of Dr. Kevin Rafael Guerra and sister-in-law of Dr. Kenneth Raul Guerra. Both of them passed due to COVID complications on December of 2020. My husband was the first one lose this battle on December 12th, and 18 hours later, my brother-in-law Kenneth passed away also. My husband and my brother-in-law, they was a troublemakers, double trouble. They had a lot of friends there and make a jokes and everything every time. They never take us seriously, nothing. There was very generous people, very compromised with the career. We share a lot of good times and memories that actually fill my heart, no? And I live from my memories and the time we share together. The worst thing about lose a loved one, no, due to the COVID, is your loved one be alone, admitted at a hospital, without you, without your cares. You can say bye, you can give the last kiss, you can give the last hug. And that's very painful. I think that's the worst thing. I miss the guy shared with me 12 years of my life, the best ones. I miss my son's father, the guy who played with my son every time and tried to teach football techniques to my son. For the ones maybe out there say the COVID not real, okay? Or pain. And the pain for everyone who lose a loved one. It's real, okay? The struggle is real. If my husband or my brother-in-law, they maybe at that time could have the opportunity to get the vaccine, they will not have a problem to say, I will get it, okay? I will get my vaccine. So if you have this opportunity, take it. I hope my testimony helped to change something in your mind. And probably take the best decision the next time when the doctor asks to you if you want to take your vaccine. If you don't want to do it for yourself, try to do it for your family, okay? To be safe, for your country.
Cumpleaños feliz, te deseamos a ti.
Welcome back. Welcome back to Open Your Eyes, and we're moving now into our second segment. This is definitely one of those that the entire country is actually looking forward to. How are we going to fight crime? But in to talk to us about it, we've got the Minister himself, Minister of Home Affairs, Karim Musa. Good morning, sir, and welcome.
Good morning, John, and good morning, Marlene, and of course, good morning to all your viewers and to Belize.
Indeed. Sir, we're in a tough situation within this country. Families are weeping, families are crying, and we're noticing that the empathy from the entire country is actually showing up as we speak. We continue to hear all these negative situations with criminal activities that's going on across the country. People are trying to fathom gang members having meetings and stuff like that, labeling them. Sir, what's going on? What's going on in our country?
Yeah, it's very critical at this moment in time and space, John, for us to put everything into context. Before we start to talk about solutions, we have to analyze the data and where we are exactly at this moment in time. As you know, crime did not happen overnight. Yeah. It's not a 2021 issue. Mm-hmm. Young people have been killed over the years. You can recall Tyler Savory, you can recall Joshua Abraham, and now in the last few months we've seen so many young people losing their lives. Yeah. But when you look at the gang culture that has developed over the years, you will realize that 30 years ago there was a handful of gang members. I'm not talking criminals and robbers and all of that. Specifically looking at the gang culture issue, there was only a handful of gang members 30 years ago. Fast forward to now, where we have 469 known gang members. It might seem like an alarming figure, but again, that did not come overnight. It came from years and years and years of neglect and abandonment. It came from years and years and years of not realizing the importance of keeping young children in school. It came from not enough and adequate social programs to help families who are facing dire straits economically. Family systems, the breakdown of mothers and fathers and grandparents and not being there to supervise these young children. It came from years and years and years of that. And gang leaders all too willing to recruit young people, recruit new members and grow in numbers. It doesn't help, John, that we have very porous borders. And so while the numbers of gang members are growing, so too the influx of weapons, of guns. During the state of emergency, for instance, we were able to take very high-powered weapons off the street, about 14 firearms off the street. But that is only a very small fraction of what it really is. And you might say, but why can't the police pick up these guns? It's because the criminals are burying the guns. They are buried. Whether in yards or in abandoned lots, they are buried. So it's very difficult to find once they come into the country. And so we have a very, very serious problem right now. And it's an important discussion, and it's very unfortunate that it has to take the loss of the life of one amazing young man. By all accounts, by his peers, by his friends, by his teachers, his mother and father. Just listening to them, John, you say to yourself as a politician, where did we go wrong? Because this family, when I tell you they're spiritual, they pray every day together. They made sure that Dwayne had the best education. They made sure to find the money to send Dwayne to school, to believe in him and to fulfill his dreams. He really had so many dreams. Of becoming, like I said, a UCLA basketball player. I mean, it's just so shattering for an entire country now to watch this happen in front of our eyes. And 2021, we're seeing it all. And so the trauma isn't just on the family, it is on all of us. All of us, whether you have a child or not, this hurts every single one of us, and it cuts very deep. And so we have to understand where we are today, 469 of them. I know a lot of people said, oh, you just sent 60 of them under the SOE. Let me explain just very briefly how this SOE was approached. Because while there were 60 of them detained at Colby, there were 409 of them out of prison on the streets. And so, yes, everybody is casting a blanket. Oh, you talk to criminals, you have them in the SOE and you let them out and you talk to them. 409 of them were just waiting for the SOE to be up because they didn't want to go to jail in that 30-day period. And so it's almost like the bell rang. The SOE is up, they can't lock us up again, and havoc wreaked once again. Because this murder happened in an area that is known as Jungle, and it is not part of those individuals who were rounded up. Again, it is only a small fraction. Those individuals who were there and who have come out have not engaged, not since then, and I'm not saying that they're not going to return to it, but there has been talks of peace. You see it now every night on the news, gangs realizing there's no use to this. We are killing one another. We are ending up dead or ending up in prison, and nothing is getting better for us. And so there's this realization that's coming about, and I think in large part due to the fact that this young man was killed. In large part because it has shocked even them to the point of saying, man, what have we done? And yes, gang leaders have come on national TV and said, we condemn the killing of young people. But they need to go a step further and say we condemn all killings, not just against young people. Because when I go to kill you, my rival, you may have your child in your hand. And so that child may become collateral damage. And so, yes, it might be a step in the right direction to see these truces being formed. It might be a step in the right direction, seeing them saying we should not kill young people, but let's go a step further. Turn in those guns and weapons that you have buried. Let us be serious if you want to be serious. That is where we are. But I know more than anything else, Marlene wants to get to the solutions.
Before that.
Before that.
Before that.
469.
So why are there not 469 arrests made and charges laid for persons who are known to be gang members? It is in our law.
Absolutely, Marlene. And let me say this. The gang membership law that was passed, what would you think the sentence is if you are found guilty of that? Let me hear what your thoughts are based on what has been transpiring from the courts.
2 to 5 years.
I'd say the same, 2 to 5.
20 years if you are found guilty of being a gang leader. 20 years. Have you heard anybody getting 20-year sentences for being a gang leader?
No,
They're
sir.
being released with fines, and that is the court system. And so a lot of people are saying, well, change the law and increase it. The law is already there. What we need is enforcement at the magistracy level and at the Supreme Court level. Because I can tell you there are so many of that 469 who have been charged, they plead guilty, and they are fined $500,000, released back into society. And so there needs
To commit the crime again.
Yes.
And they can be charged again.
And they can be charged again. And
When-
there's actually more severe penalty on the second offense,
Precisely.
40 years.
So why are we not going this route? Minister, when we talk about truces happening on TV, we have seen from the top leaders of this country meet with gang leaders and establish truces. Look at where we are in 2021. It has not worked.
Marlene,
and there are
and-
many who are skeptical when they see someone step forward and say, don't kill children, but it's okay to
But it's
kill
okay
the
to
rest.
kill others, yes.
How are we as a society who get ticketed for face masks, arrested for any minor charge, to accept that this is where we are? We are still negotiating with people who are breaking the law by being a part of gangs.
Now, let us go back to where we started, where I mentioned there were only 60 individuals who were detained under the SOE. Of that 60, 40 of them want to continue to live a life of crime and a life of gang culture. 20 of them want to change. So my question to you is, do we abandon that 20? Do we not listen to their cry? Do we just ignore them? And you mentioned negotiating with gang members. There's no negotiation here. I'm not offering them anything other than insight that we will do everything to save your communities, healing your communities. That is what is needed. Getting the Ministry of Education into your communities, finding young men who are vulnerable and ensuring that they stay in school, getting the social workers inside those homes to determine, is this family, is this mother and this father capable of raising this child? We have to get a full approach, and we've been calling for this. I called for it in the when I was in opposition, and I have called for it now, and it has been heard. That cry has been heard, and it's been months, Marlene, that the Ministry of Education has been working with me. The Ministry of Youth and Sports has been working. Ministry of Human Development. All of us are on board. But what people want is a very quick fix.
Yes.
Remember, it took us 3 decades to get here. Today, you won't find a solution, but I could tell you this, Marlene, that young man's life who you saved by having them in school now, 12 years old, and keeping them in school, you will see the dividends of that. You will see the reward of that when that child turns 20, because when he graduates, whether it's from high school or whether it's from vocational, when he graduates with a degree, he has invested sufficiently in himself to not want to commit crime. The individuals committing crime have dropped out of school, have not even stepped foot inside a high school. And so we have to understand the importance of education.
But is that not the reason why this particular case, this particular incident of Dwayne Gabriel is so absolutely hurtful?
It is.
The example
It
that you
is.
speak of, where a family provided the support, the security for him to be able to further his education. And even though he was afforded or pushed to stay on the right path, he still lost his life.
And that is why, Marlene, it is absolutely critical because we are only touching right now, this first part of the discussion is such a complex issue.
Yes.
We are only touching on those who want to reform and saving them and saving the next generation and the long-term problems. We're not touching on the penalizing that must come for the murder of this young man. That is what is critical. That is what people are clamoring for right now. And we, the police department, the ministry, will utilize and access all our sources and resources necessary to bring justice in this case. It's a difficult situation because, yes, we touched on judges enforcing the law, but now we also have to look at members of society playing their part. When this incident happened, so many members and eyewitnesses could tell the police verbally, so and so do it, but they're not willing to go and give a statement. This is critical, very critical. So we need the buy-in, but in the absence
because their
of
life
that,
would be at risk.
yes, but in the absence of that, what we've had to do is utilize surveillance cameras. So while it is that the public's information is good to give you an indication of who it might be, surveillance cameras could see at the point where it happened, all the way to the point where the individual may have been dropped off. And so it then adds pieces and pieces together of the puzzle. It does not help, I will tell you this, that in times of COVID, we have to wear masks. It does not help because identity then becomes an issue. In this instance, the individual had on a cap. He had on a face mask, a full face mask that went around and around, which, by the way,
Which
we
Commissioner
need to change
said
that.
we
We will
would
change that. In the next SI, that will be changed. You cannot wear these fishing masks anymore. You have to wear the surgical mask like what you have on. And so these are the types of things that are hindering the police work. But at the same time, like I said, we will do every single thing in our power to ensure that the killer in this case is brought to justice. And I am certain that he will.
We speak on trying to get the public's buy-in, but at the same time, one of the things, especially out of the areas where we would refer to as gang-ridden, one of the things that they continue to make mention of, Minister, is that the police come here and make a ruckus of the particular area. So how do you expect to get people to want to give you information if you come to my area and you make a ruckus of the area? What's the buy-in there?
When you say police make a ruckus, and you always hear complaints of it, and that's a very sad part of this whole thing, you know, that as members of the public, we are quick to pull out our phones the moment a police comes into our home for a search, but a crime is happening right there and we don't pull out our phone to record that. You know how far that could go. You don't have to testify, John, but you pull out your phone and you caught the criminal, you caught the license plate on that vehicle or that motorcycle. Why aren't we doing that as a society? Why aren't we pulling out our phones to look out for one another? Why are we only doing it because when police come into our homes, we don't feel that they should be searching our homes? That is the only time you see anybody pull out their phones. And so when you say police come into their home and do a ruckus, I take offense to that many times because many times it is the homes of criminals that they must go in to look for these buried guns, to access other key pieces of information and to access individuals who they may be hiding who are suspects. This is a reality that we're living in. And so police must be allowed to do their job. But without police brutality. Absolutely. And that is something that I am firmly and fundamentally against. But again, it's a complex issue and you have to deal with it issue by issue as you go along. But police reform is something that has to happen in parallel. This is something, Marlene and John, that we inherited, you know. It's like a relay race. Governments don't just hand off the baton and you were in the lead all the while. This is your opponents, and the opponents being the criminals, having lacked the government so many times. You're way behind with a baton. So many things have to fix in the system, but it does not mean that you cannot work on police reform and end police brutality while at the same time fighting crime. You have to do both of them in tandem.
And that is also the same approach that I think takes me back to the earlier question. When you know you have known persons who are known to the police department who have been perpetrating these crimes. And I understand, I do believe that young men can change their lives. They can put themselves on a better path, very often at the risk of their own lives. So you can work on the 20 that you said who do want to change their lives, but what happens to ensure that people who are known to associate and perpetrate these crimes will be brought to justice, and not just when they kill a young, promising boy like Dwayne Gabriel?
And it goes back to the very same instance of the gang membership law. It's a very critical piece of legislation, and we should not allow it to just go like it's not important, like it's not functioning. And right now it's not functioning. I'll be the first to say that it's not functioning because the police intelligence is excellent when it comes to gathering information on gang members. They have to build a case file on these individuals, you know. So they go through all of the groundwork to actually build up to prove that these individuals are members of gang, from photographs of them hanging out, from videos of them with guns, from tattoos that they may have. It's a lot that goes into building a case against them. And so you know what that is like, to have to build that case only to when it reaches the magistrate's court that they are fined and they are released. We need to look at the law. The law is there, so there's no need for us to say we need to change the law. There's no need for that. The law is there. But when it comes to other cases, for instance, this very crazy murder, we have to put greater police presence in these areas. That is being done right now operationally. We, like I said previously on our show, we are severely undermanned in the police department. So far, 50 police officers just for 2021 have gone home, whether because they were corrupt or rogue cops, they have gone home, or they may have passed away. But we are losing our police officers, and so the 225 recruits that are coming out, it's very timely and much needed, because then we can put more officers in these gang-prone areas. And that you will see more of that in Belize City.
When we look at the situation of where we are, and you rightly said, and I hope that the acknowledgement comes that this has been a long-standing problem spanning political parties that have been in leadership. But when we look at the landscape of this country today, 60%, probably more, living in poverty. We know that based on studies that have been conducted, that especially the south side of Belize City, they are single-parent households. We know that based on recent announcements just by the Minister of Education himself, that children are not re-enrolling back into school in COVID times. We had the head of IT vet here who said his enrollment has dropped 50% since COVID. It is fertile ground for more recruitments and more illegal activities. I'm not saying it's a certainty, but it's fertile ground. So let's talk about what happens. I understand this is not an easy problem to solve, and anybody who sits back and says, what you want to do to fix it, is fooled by the realities of the situation. But there must be interventions made to be able to calm it. And clearly, it's not the state of emergency, because look at where we are.
It is making it mandatory. You see how you have been mandated to wear these masks? And let me apologize for not having mine on.
We're 6 feet.
6 feet apart, and it's only for me to speak on the show. But if we can mandate wearing masks, we can mandate something that is good for our children, and that is keeping them in school. And so them not showing up to school when school starts, again, this is another huge disadvantage that COVID has brought on us. Like you rightly said, so many have dropped out since COVID. But once we get back to the classroom, you must be mandated. Every single mother and father and grandparent must ensure that their child is going to school. And if not, that falls on you as the parent. And so making it mandatory is absolutely essential in this very critical time. Not everybody is built to go to school. We understand that you are more equipped to do technical, and that's why we have to offer that as well. But in the absence of those two things, and none of those things are working out for you, then we have to consider perhaps making it mandatory if you don't fall in those two categories of academics or of vocational, then perhaps the military. but you cannot be hanging out on your street corner every day and every night and scheming and plotting and what we're going to do to somebody today. That is not going to be allowed. And so that is where we need to go again, long term.
Or current laws are for mandatory education up to 14.
14. That has
Let's
to change,
look
in
at
my
the
opinion, to
recruitment
18.
of gang members.
Yes, it's right at that age.
Right at that age.
Right at that, even earlier, unfortunately. But that has to go up to 18 because it takes time. It takes time. When you're 14, at 15, you're still very impressionable.
Yeah.
You can still easily be recruited and influenced, and you were not given the opportunity to finish your education. That is the important part. Getting your diploma and walking up and graduating. That is what is important for you as an individual to know you have invested. My family invested in me. They believed in me, and I got to this very important part in my life. And both of you know, to get a job anywhere, what do they ask for? A high school diploma.
You need that.
And
That's
so
primarily.
that has been a barrier of entry for
And
our
a
young
police
people.
record.
And a clean police record.
Indeed.
So in the absence of those things, you cannot get a job. And so right away, we understand the importance of education, that you cannot go further without it.
But at the same time, you know, and I'm glad you alluded to that, because you must have a clean police record. But at the same time, we're seeing whereby there's some companies who are actually trying to give another shot at life. How important is that? Because not because you might have done something one time mean that your sky falls right here. You can't go above that.
Yeah.
How realistic can that be within our country for people to get another shot? And you know, what are your thoughts on this?
That's very important, John. I firmly believe in reform and rehabilitation. And like I said, there's a very small fraction of these young men who are willing to turn over a new leaf. Some of them have conviction records when they were 12, they're now 30. A lot of them marijuana possession convictions only. And so that is why it's important to have those records expunged, because how can you get a job in this climate with that police record? You cannot. And so it is good to see certain businesses practicing that. But you can look at an individual's rap sheet and their convictions and know if they committed a crime 20 years ago and they have been on the straight and narrow since then, clearly he deserves a second chance in life.
Yeah.
Let me come back to some of the immediate interventions. There is, I hope, and I can only speak for me, that this is the tipping point for some type of change. And so my question is, we saw the Prime Minister put out a message about cracking down on crime. Special Envoy put out a message. You have spoken publicly. Minister of Youth. Multiple other persons have come to the forefront to say this is going to change. So tell me what. Tell us what. What is going to change? What will be different moving forward that we don't have to collectively grieve this type of atrocity in our society?
Like I said earlier, Marlene, what was missing from the last administration is the political will. A lot of people like to say, Karim, in opposition, you had all the answers. I don't have all the answers. My first degree was in sociology, and so I have an idea of what the answers are. Professionals in this, like Dr. Gale, Dr. Crooks, those are individuals who have all the answers. So what I am spewing or what I'm putting out there is just from them where we need to go in the long term. What was missing in the last administration was the political will. They had the biggest budget with PetroCaribe, and they did nothing with it to invest in these areas that need great healing. They did nothing with that money. Right now, like I said, in this marathon, in this relay race, when they hand it off to us, you know, I know, we've been going through hurdle after hurdle, starting with COVID in December last year and getting a handle on that. We were able to, and of course, everything else is now starting to be put in place. So tourism is on the rise again. Agriculture is doing good again. We managed to restructure Superbond. And so a lot of things are happening to get us to the point where if we have the political will, and I'm certain we do, once we have the budget to be put into the free education, once we have the budget to put into more social workers, once we have the budget to get our youth involved in youth and sports and those types of programs again, and opportunities, economic opportunities to tackle that 60% poverty rate, we will be making steps in the right direction. But again, and I have to repeat this, it took us 30 years to get here. I'm not saying that it's going to take us 30 years to fix it, but it is starting now. The seeds have been planted, and I can tell you this, in 3 years from now, you will see that difference.
When you were in opposition, you reached out to the government, offering yourself to be a part of a collaboration or a committee to address crime. Is there a crime control or inter-ministerial committee established or being established? And will you include the opposition who also have a role to play in this fight?
There's not only that interministerial work that's being done. And yes, like I mentioned, there's the Minister of Youth and Sports, the Ministry of Human Development, Ministry of Education, Ministry of Natural Resources, Ministry of Agriculture even. All of them coming together to tackle this very serious issue that we have. Because while policing falls under the Ministry of Home Affairs, the fight against crime and poverty falls on everybody. And so that is why that is extremely important, this collaborative effort, because I don't have the budget to put into education. I don't have the budget to put into social programs or youth programs. That comes from those other ministries. It is identifying the problem and then tackling it together. And that is what we're doing. I have reached out as well to members of the opposition who have indicated to me that they're willing to work. Honorable Tracy Panton, Honorable Shine Barrow, O.J. Elrington messaged me, and maybe we can get some work with him as well. But a lot of people don't know this, but in terms of the intervention that we had at prison, I went up there twice. On the second occasion, Shine Barrow was there with me. I invited him, and he came along, and he gave a very inspirational speech. Again, out of the 60 of them, I could identify 20 of them who want out. It's usually when they reach the age of 35 that they realize this was not worth it, and I want out. It's very difficult for them because people want them dead. I understand that, but
at the 35, it's survival of the fittest.
They've made it to 35, and that's a long. That's like you're 70 in real years
with the lifestyle.
Yes,
and then that's very real. But what happened with them after they came out from the state of emergency? What was offered? What intervention?
Yes, you see, and that's maybe something that I am not one to always bring along the cameras, but this work continues. Last Friday, again, we had meetings with them, again, the ones that are serious about changing, because they understand the long-term nature of this issue that we're going to fight. They understand it's going to take time. They're committed to it. The 20 are committed to it. And so it's not just me. We have an entire leadership intervention unit with pastors. Pastor Ashley Rock sits on it. Pastor Christopher, educators like Dr. McKay from Gwen Liz, she's on it with us. Mr. William Dawson, he's the chair of it. Assistant Commissioner of Police, Dr. Rosado. It's not normal to have a police officer meeting with gangs. You've never seen that. And so it's not about meeting with gangs, it's meeting with individuals who want to be former gang members. They don't want it anymore. And so it's easy for the whole country to say, dash away all of them. That's the easiest thing to do. But there is a very small percentage that wants saving, and we have an obligation of, as government, not just to heal the next generation, but to help those who want out as well. We cannot turn our backs on them.
So I hear just one last thing. Do you know, what is your perspective now on the effectiveness of state of emergency on gangs?
The state of emergency, let me explain the utility of it. Gang culture in Belize. John is from George Street, I'm from Taylor's Alley. This is a rivalry, very close-knit community. John kills my friend, I kill John's friend. It goes on and on and on. The only thing that can put a halt to that is timeout. That's what a state of emergency is. When there is no end to retaliation in sight and you need to calm things down, that is what the purpose of an SOE is. And you know, when they get to prison, they realize, why the way we made it do? Me hear you want to kill me. Boy, I never say I want to kill you. How you hear that? So it's a lot of gossiping. It's a lot of hearsay. And that results in me defending myself and going after you first because I hear you to come for me. And so it's a never-ending cycle that has to be put on pause. And that's what happened. But this particular state of emergency was different. The last state of emergency under the previous administration went for 90 days. This was only for 30 days. That went for 90 days. There was no sort of talking with those young men. So you out of the 160, we don't know if 40 wanted to be saved.
Yeah.
All of them treated as monsters, continue your lifestyle. When they come out, they just went on business as usual.
Yeah.
What we have seen since the state of emergency is 3 truces. Whether they're genuine or not is left to be seen. But at the same time, it's a different approach and isolating those individuals that want to change and going after those very seriously, very stiffly, going after those who do not want to change. And that is where the police work comes in.
All right. So we know that we're pressed for time. But I've heard help. I've heard healing, which of course comes as one of the biggest blessings that I think we need in our country. But when in opposition, you wanted to be there. Now you're here. I think one of the things that these guys would like to see, and this is a lead by example situation here, is trusting your word. Can you give us, and by trusting your word, I'd like to hear at least one success story. Even if you want to call a name, to say that, you know what, we spoke to this guy was one of them who really wanted to change, and now this is what he's doing. Do we have any such story?
I would do a great disservice to you, John, because like I said, there are 20 of them that I identified personally. That Dr. Rosado agreed those individuals have not been giving trouble, at least for the last year or two. They're trying to work, they're trying to help out their community in positive ways, finding jobs, getting cement mixers. If you want individual stories, you can go along with me to the community hubs that the U.S. Embassy invested in. The young man, Bertie, he's in the St. Martin's area. He has a mechanic shop. He's a success story because people are now taking their vehicles to him. When he opened that community hub last year, there was a shooting.
Yeah.
He was shot days after the community hub.
I remember.
From his deathbed. He called his people and he told them, do not retaliate.
Yeah.
There was no retaliation after that. Do not retaliate. That is a success story. Because since then, those guys are not involved in crime. They're trying to change their lives. And it's not just him. JD, when you go to Yabra, he has he's making tiles, he's making cement structures, he has a car wash. These are community hubs that are being put in place for individuals who want a different life. And so there's a lot of collaborative effort, not just the U.S. Embassy, Colby Foundation, Cisco Woods, Miss Debbie from Love Foundation, all of these people coming together to put very important projects in place for these individuals who want to change.
And just lastly, you talked about the interministerial and opposition reach out, but what about looking at the continuum for criminal justice? Where is the conversation with the courts about sentencing? Where is the conversation with the prison about rehabilitation? What about the after incarceration period? How do you go full circle so that we don't end up back in this cycle, or we can prevent it at the very least?
We spoke about several things that have suffered under COVID. The fact that we have to wear masks and you cannot positively identify criminals. The fact that schools, children have been out of schools for so long, that has had a huge detrimental effect on our children. But even the court system, court system has gotten even slower. And so we have to step up our prosecution efforts, regardless of what we're going through with COVID right now. It will take the buy-in of the magistrates to be on board, to show up to work on time and to leave at 5 p.m. when you're supposed to, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Put in your pounds. Put in your pounds as judges, as magistrates. Realize how critically important this is and look at the law. What does the law say about sentencing, and make sure you deliver justice in each of these cases.
Yeah. All right, well, we are completely out of time. This was just an immediate check-in with all that we've been seeing. And of course, we welcome you back to be able to discuss more in length the strategies that you are hoping to implement. Any final words?
I have to end off by saying it's been such a huge tragedy that we are faced with right now. and listening to Miss Rondine, the mother of Dwayne, it inspires me because there's no talk of retaliation, quite the opposite.
Yeah.
There's talk of using her son as the beacon of hope and of change for other young people. Because like I said, they did everything right, Marlene. That's one thing I told her over and over when I met with her. You did every single thing right and by the book. And we in the police department have to ensure that justice is done. And like I said, that's been such an inspiration to see that she wants to utilize this so that we can continue and start the process of healing. That is absolutely important at this time. So I just want to say thank you all very much for having me this morning.
And we appreciate you taking the time. We're going to go ahead and take a break now, and when we come back, we'll be joined by representatives of Beltrade to talk about building resilient MSMEs. So please, stay tuned.
Hello, friends. This is Dr. Bob Roberts with another 60-second sermon from God's Word. The Bible says, "The Spirit itself beareth witness with our spirit that we are the children of God. And if children of God, then heirs, heirs of God, and joint heirs with Christ." Did you know that God has placed every true believer in His heavenly will, not only as an heir, but as a joint heir with Christ? In 2012, Timothy Gray, a 60-year-old homeless man, was found dead of hypothermia under a railway bridge in Evanston, Wyoming. Headlines the next day read, "Potential heir to $300 million Clark copper fortune found dead." He was homeless. He was the legal great-grandson of reclusive New York City heiress Huguette Clark. Lawyers and private investigators had been searching to find him for over a year to inform him she had left him with an inheritance of $19 million. We are heirs to the grace of God, the promises of God, the provisions of God, the peace of God, and the kingdom of God, and eternal life in God. Then we must live in light of who we are and what we have in Christ. We have been lifted from rags to riches and robed in God's righteousness, and the best is yet to come. We are heirs of God and joint heirs with Christ, so live like it. Today's 60-second sermon has been presented by Christian Foundations of Faith in cooperation with the Baptist churches in your area.
Imagine going through your entire day without the burden and risk of carrying cash on you. Belize's shift to digital wallets has begun with eCash. We can now skip the cash when collecting money or paying for our essentials, all while using a fast, easy, and secure platform. Simply add funds to your wallet via bank transfer or at an agent, and you're good to go. You will be able to make quick, easy payments simply by scanning QR codes. And best of all, it all happens just like that. Payments are as easy as clicking a link online or scanning a QR code. Download the eCash app from the Google Play and Apple App Store today and take your first step into a cashless lifestyle. The future is here with eCash. For more information, visit www.e-cash.com or contact us via WhatsApp at 613-0257 to find out more.
Bundle the fastest, most reliable, unlimited broadband in Belize with your prepaid or postpaid mobile plan or Netflix. You can bundle your broadband with your prepaid and enjoy 50% off all national calls, plus get SMS and data. Paid plans? Then bundle with any speed and pay only $25 extra monthly to enjoy unlimited smart-to-smart calls, plus 500 minutes, plus 6,300 megabytes of data. Stream unlimited HD movies and TV shows with our broadband, plus the Netflix add-on for only $30 monthly, and enjoy streaming on your laptop, TV, phone, or tablet. Visit a smart showroom near you to sign up or upgrade to the bundle that's right for you. Smart, bringing people together.
love is always with you, from live TV, sports, and on-demand titles. Choose your plan today. Plans start as low as $15 per month. My TV. Entertainment anytime, anywhere.
Hello.
Welcome back to Open Your Eyes, and we're moving now into our third segment for the morning. Now this one surrounds Beltrade, and they'll be sharing with us about the Building Resilient MSME. Just in case you didn't know, that's actually micro, small, and medium enterprises. Exactly, I would say the stronghold of the workforce in this country. And in to talk to us about it, Dr. Leroy Almendarez, Executive Director, Beltrade, and of course, Chris Magan, Managing Director of PPF Capital and Consultant UNDP Project. That's a lot of things, man. But nonetheless, guys, good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Jen.
Yeah.
Good morning,
It's really nice to have you in. Loving the colors, I've got to say. Really nice to have you in. Beltrade and making sure we're building this resiliency on MSMEs. And primarily, we'd like for folks to understand what are MSMEs. And we know for a fact that these are actually micro, small, and medium enterprises, the stronghold of job force within our country. Mr. Leroy,
thanks,
extend
John.
on it for us,
Thanks,
please.
John. Many times we don't realize the importance of this sector. But when you really think about it, over 90% really of the businesses in Belize are MSMEs.
Exactly.
And you have spelled it out already.
Yeah.
And so even a survey that we did last year, for example, the response, the first response, based on the pandemic, 83% of them were from the sector. But 54% of them were from micros. That's less than four employees. But too often, when we look at the wealth, the GDP of the country, we tend to think it's from the larger enterprises. But think about the resilience that has to be built, because if all of these enterprises, and we're talking formal and informal, not only those that are registered, the informal, and this project really takes into consideration all of those.
Yeah.
So if this sector was to decline even further, small business closing, etc., think about the greater dependency on the public purse.
I can imagine.
That becomes even more of a challenge. So this project, the UNDP project, and so it was based on this kind of statistics that we had this initial conversation with the UNDP. And they said, this project is coming up. And so we put together a proposal, and the project was approved. And it is to build the resilience, but let me just give you some of the areas of the project, and then I think we could focus on the survey. The first part of it, of course, is to build a strategy, to put together a medium-term strategy. Now, there are other strategies that are being developed as well. For example, there's a medium-term strategy being developed by the government as well. What we don't want are duplication of efforts, because we don't have the resources to do so.
Okay.
So this project, but to find out what the needs of people are, or where we should target, you can't do that just by thinking, well, this is the problem. So we contracted PPF, and Mr. Magan is here and can discuss further, and to look at developing this medium-term strategy. And this will be a national medium-term strategy. We were discussing earlier that the last strategy that was developed for MSMEs was 2012. And that's how the Small Business Development Center of Beltrade came about, because they were supposed to take it and run with it and ensure that these enterprises are fully serviced in terms of advising, training, and things like that. So that's the first part of the project. The second part of it is to build a virtual knowledge center. What does this mean? This simply means then that if you don't have a digital presence these days, it will be hard for you to survive.
No.
And so it will have opportunities for these enterprises to access, supply chains. You notice musicians can now digitize their work and get it.
Yeah.
And remember, they are part of it. We're talking about goods and services. Too often we focus only on goods. No, it's service driven, and we forget many times that every product produced, a large part of it is service oriented. So that's the second part of it, this virtual knowledge center. And after that is designed, we also have the consultant for the development of that. We have also selected a content developer because all of these things have to be tested. You know, it has to serve the beneficiaries. So that's the second part of it. And the third part of it is, after that is all put together, we will select 150 of these enterprises to test it. Because you must test it, does it meet my needs?
Yeah.
Because the end user is important. The person who's developing this virtual knowledge center has to think about the fact that the person does not fully understand how to even use a computer, for example. They have to take that into consideration. It must be simplified, that I'm able to access it. And when I access this information, does it serve my purpose? Can I interact with other businesses? Because it creates a business-to-business interface. I need to do work with you or Marlene or Chris. That should be able, I should be able to access that kind of information. So that's the third part of it. And those are the three components of this project. But remember, this project cannot be in isolation. It has to contribute to national development. So the more efficiency that is created for these enterprises and be able to have a digital footprint, it makes it even more, creates even a greater opportunity for them to participate in the economic development of this country.
And clearly, you're starting off by collecting the data.
Right.
This is going to be a data-driven exercise. Now, Chris, this is where I want to hear from you in terms of being able to collect the information from MSMEs themselves. Very often, two things. One, they don't have the time for that. Secondly, people are concerned about giving out business data. You know, you just don't know what's going to happen with it or how it'll be used.
Right. So I guess we could start from the high-level strategic development approach. MSME development doesn't happen in sort of isolation. There's an entire ecosystem that goes into it. So the data that we're collecting and the conversations we're having to inform the strategy come from consultations with a broad array of stakeholders, including and importantly the MSME entrepreneurs themselves. Okay. We're looking at the strategy from 4 angles or 4 pillars. The entrepreneur level, what's the consumer culture? What are our preferences? Do we prefer imported versus domestic or homegrown products or services? What's the business culture? Which speaks to exactly what you were asking about. Do we have a culture of disclosure? Do we have a culture of collaboration, partnership, and sharing? Those are important considerations that will drive the business and the MSME landscape. We're looking at the enterprise level. That's another pillar of this study and strategy. Do we have the capabilities, the technical skills, the specific capacities that are necessary to carry out, to execute the strategies of these MSMEs? Do we have the capital? Access to finance is always a part of the discussion. And part of the conversation is, what is the appropriate level of finance for MSMEs? Is it a bank loan, or is it a type of equity investment? Those are important parts of the conversation that need to be had. And again, it speaks back to the business culture part of it. Do we have the culture of taking on partners, taking on shareholders, or do we want to go it alone? We're also looking at industry level. What's the market structure? Is it competitive market? Is it a monopoly market? Legal and regulatory framework. There's a lot happening right now to reform that part of it. I think the tax service is doing some major reforms. What's the process of registering your business? What's the process of getting environmental clearance as a small, medium, micro enterprise? These are some of the conversations. Do we have research and innovation happening that can complement what we're doing? And finally, at the national level, what's the financial system like? Financial market development, physical infrastructure. Do we have roads? Do we have access to the internet? So some of the same themes that are emerging across, it's definitely a cross-cutting project, but it's an entire ecosystem that contributes to MSMEs and MSME development. how do we get the people to respond? Your original question. I think.
Well, I sent it out to a few people, so yeah.
We've sent it out. I think even measuring the amount of micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises is a challenge. I think the last survey happened in about 2016 from the Statistical Institute of Belize, but it's difficult because they are formal or registered for tax purposes, small, medium, micro enterprises, and there's the informal. And this COVID pandemic and the associated crisis has also, out of necessity, become the mother of invention and created a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of people that have pivoted out of necessity and seeing the opportunities to create micro enterprises. So it is a fluid concept how many SMEs are there.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really critical point. We've had a flow of new entrepreneurs who popped up over the course of COVID. We've been highlighting them on the show because it does show how people can pivot. Right. My question has to do with doing the assessment at this time. How do you separate the COVID realities from the responses? When you talk about access to financing or even just the model that's being used now in 2021 would have been different 2019 or even in previous projections.
Yeah, surely.
Well, one of the things we must, and I'm glad that we're mentioning it, this all has to do with COVID. It has a lot to do with COVID, by the way. As a matter of fact, as Chris has mentioned, the pivoting. Last year we had a project, a stimulus project, again for survivability and sustainability of these enterprises. And one of the things we found out indeed is, how has COVID affected you? Because remember, many of these informal or formal enterprises, the micros especially, they, in terms of their funds, they don't have bank accounts. Chris is talking about the financial system. Access to finance is prohibitive because the interest rates are too high, so access to microfinance. And so these are some of the things that we found out. The other thing we want to encourage where entrepreneurship is concerned is if everybody can produce develop up another shop or something that is similar. Use innovation. Innovation is a big part of, but they will try. Remember, what profits start to decline. The more of them that exist within that environment, the profits start to decline. So be innovative. And you found out, now we said that COVID created its own demands. Because it's had an effect. Who would have thought that we'd be walking around with masks and watching on television with masks and people know, really when you wear your clothes, there's a mask to match it and all of that. It created its own demands. So that became an enterprise. And if you notice now, it's now designer mask. It's not just wearing one. You don't have to be importing these things that only doctors used to wear in surgery. You see so many pivoted and actually surviving. The problem is that many times, in order for me to survive, the resources I was already using, I need resources now to pivot to do something else, and that's where the challenge comes. You see? So, but COVID is, let's take the tourism industry, for example. There's so many entities that rely on the tourism industry. And so when that took that shock, when we started, when decline in terms of visits and all of that started to happen, all of those businesses no longer had the same opportunities. Some might have transitioned. Some decided, really to try to find a job elsewhere. But what we're saying is you have to look at the environment. The other thing we need to mention is there are two demographics that often are considered disenfranchised, women and youth. And so the challenge is the economic empowerment. I must say that this project also takes into consideration that same information from the socioeconomic impact. We'll collect data on how women-led, really homes, enterprises, how they affected youth. You were talking about crime just now with the minister. If we can engage that positive energy to get them to think and realize that your idea, your intellectual property can actually become a business, that's important to look at. The pandemic is there, and yes, the health gains, with putting all the vaccination and those things are in play. But that data, once analyzed, and we were talking about it because you need reliable data. I think Marlene said the same thing. We not just want people to just go and fill out the thing and say, because it's important that you fill it out because you're a business. because we want to see how it's affecting the business. Right?
Yeah, and it's better to be able to have the data to know where you need to implement the projects or what projects need to be implemented. But let's go back to participation here. As you rightly noted, there's been a growth in new micro businesses popping up. Many of them are working in a digital space. Many are not registered. And I know, speaking with businesses that have been established, they think of the unfairness of it. But from the other end, the people trying to survive. They may have fears or apprehensions of registering in a system, knowing perhaps they haven't done all the due diligence that is necessary to have a business. What do you say to that?
I think it's important to look at sort of the business life cycle from an idea. You're taking it to an idea, you're sort of prototyping and testing with your friends, your family, and close relations. And when you realize, okay, I have a viable product or service is when you're starting to take it to market. I think it's at that point where you have a viable idea that, you actually do the registration. In a crisis, sometimes that happens overnight. You suddenly lost your normal source of income and you're doing it. I think it's at what point you realize, okay, this is what I'm going to keep doing and formalize. And I think it's also about trying to create efficiencies and a more cooperative environment that people can call in and have the conversation and feel comfortable. We're in this gamification or app life where people want a frictionless experience. So even in designing the survey, and it works on the mobile too, it's about how do you create something where I don't have to think too much. I can just click through it seamlessly, frictionlessly. And I think perhaps that taking that user experience approach to registration of businesses, if at all possible, could definitely be helpful. If I have to call back 10 times, I probably won't if I'm focused on making a livelihood. So
it must be easy access, especially for these businesses. And I'm feeling that getting data, especially in this survey, would make it much more better for MSMEs. So it's very important for them to take part in the survey. So how can they access the survey?
I think the link is up there.
The link
This is
there.
what it looks like.
Okay, so that's what it looks like.
And there's one point of clarification here for MSMEs. We're not asking you to formalize because we want to tax you, and that's a fair that
I was going to say that. I was going to say that.
Because indeed we have had that. We have gone around the country and trying to get them to formalize, but formalize because you can access certain benefits because you're formalized. Like for example, there's a project where you can access labeling and packaging materials, but you need a TIN number from GST, and you go through customs in order to get that. But it's not to tax you. It's really to get you to understand that there are benefits to formalization. And so therefore we're not saying, because now at this point in time with the challenges of COVID, the informal sector, this is their survival. Right? So this will collect data and it helps with decision making, but decision making is only effective if you have reliable data.
Okay.
And the data they provide, I imagine, is probably going to help for those who do choose to make the step to move, to expand their business. And as you said, take advantage of things. I think there's the matching grant funds that are available in different sectors. So those are opportunities to be taken advantage of.
I see it does say here you can follow Beltrade. I think this is Facebook, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, this is Facebook. And you also, for MSMEs, you get a chance to win $1,000.
Well, there's a clarification there.
Wait, what?
Normally, little note that says, some things apply.
Some restrictions apply.
Right. The only restriction here is this, is that when you register, for example, if I don't have a business, but the survey is there, I just go and fill out the survey. It will be a random selection, but once selected, you have to really be a business. In other words, if you fill the thing out, John, but you don't have any business, then really sorry. So I'm just, because remember, we want reliable data, right? It's an incentive, but we want reliable data so that when Chris does his analysis, his analysis is not skewed because you have things in there with people. Then Then we target, you know, when you target, you want to make sure that you target those people that will truly benefit from these programs.
So you've got to sign up to be able to do. Is it?
Remember, if you're informal, you can be a business. I mean, on Coney Drive right here, there are a lot of informal business
on here.
But I'm sure they have a phone number. You might not have a steady, you know, your location might change, but at least you have a you have a number. So we're not eliminating or excluding them at all.
Or they at least have a Facebook page.
Or they have a Facebook page.
And the survey is open to existing formalized MSMEs as well, because most of the businesses out there do fall in this MSME category.
What is the benefit? If I am, listen, I can barely sit down to update a Facebook page for my business, and you want me to sit and do a survey. What is the benefit for me?
At the end of the day, we're trying to construct or build on the existing SME strategy for the country. This will inform the policymakers and the stakeholders in this ecosystem. And I think having your say and in a measured way, this is your chance to get your concerns across and to potentially influence policy development. At the end of the day, it's like we don't get fit without putting in the exercise. John was talking about that right before we came on. You exercise and you get results. In the same way, if we want to develop a vibrant SME sector, it needs the policy support and the broader ecosystem support from capital partners and other support systems, customers, market segments, etc. So this is your chance as a SME owner, entrepreneur, to sort of get your voice heard in a meaningful way in the conversation. So that is what I would say is the key benefit of it. And the chance to win the $1,000.
I remember the other aspects of the project, the virtual knowledge center. I mean, you will have full access to that and be able to access information and things like that, and be a part of that group who test it and when we pilot it, because this is not something that dies after this is concluded. It will be something ongoing. Believe me, if you don't have a digital footprint these days, that old normal that people knew about, that will never come back.
You're right.
You see?
You're right.
So making this transition is a must. And this assists you, this helps you with that. So the data helps us because it fits into the government's national MSME policy, strategy as well. So.
All right. Well, you guys said it. You put some clarification there. It's very easy. You just follow Beltrade on their Facebook page, and they'll tell you exactly how to sign up and how to take part in the survey. And you could win $1,000, just like
the website. He knows the sales pitch, you know. Don't worry. But what's the website for Beltrade?
Beltrade's website is belizeinvest.org.bz, but we have transitioned now to beltrade.bz.
Beltrade.bz.
Right. So you can also get you can access the survey there. Until when is it open?
I think it's October 6th.
Okay. All right. So that's about somewhere around next week, which is cool. All right. Dr. Leroy Almendarez, Chris Magan, thank you guys so very much for joining us this morning and providing some clarity on what these MSMEs can do to be a part of it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we're about to take a break. We know that you're so used to only 3 segments. Here we've got 4. We told you it was going to be a packed morning. Seafarers at the core of shipping future. That's World Maritime's that's their team for this year. We'll be talking about that when we come back.
Vaccines protect you and they protect me. Getting vaccinated is one of the most important things you can do to keep yourself and your family safe and healthy. Once enough people are immunized, opportunities for an outbreak of disease becomes very low. And if we all choose to get vaccinated, we contribute in getting back to spending quality time with our loved ones in a safe way.
Stay safe and submit your sickness benefit claim form electronically. Follow these 4 steps. Step 1. Obtain your medical certificate. At consultation, the doctor certifies your days of illness and provides you with a medical certificate. Step 2. Fill out your sickness benefit form. Complete all the fields in parts 1 to 4 on the front page of the sickness benefit form. Step 3. Request your salaries record form. Contact your employer for your salaries record form. Step 4. Submit your sickness benefit claim form. Scan or take a clear picture of the sickness benefit form, salaries record, and proof of bank account. Email the documents to claims@socialsecurity.org.bz within 14 days. You will receive an email reply confirming receipt of your claim. After the submission of all documents, your claim is processed for payment to your account. For any COVID-related illnesses, contact the Ministry of Health for further guidance. Social Security Board, safeguarding you, your family, your future.
Hey son, how was your first day at sixth form?
Really cool. It was great to see my friends, and I really love my teachers.
I'm so happy to hear that. I'm sorry I wasn't there for your first day, but I'll be back from Corozal next week.
It's okay, Dad. I can't wait to see you. Oh, and please remember, I still have some books I need to purchase.
Ah, yes. Let me e-cash you that right now. Money has been sent. I add a little extra cash just for you.
Whoa, Dad. Thanks. Got it.
You're welcome, sir.
Download the eCash app today and take your first step into a cashless lifestyle. For more information, visit www.e-cash.com or contact us via WhatsApp at 613-0257. eCash, the future is here.
It's a fact that your credit lasts longer when using Smart. During these times, we're all trying to find ways to cut costs and save the little resources we have. With Smart, it's easy to do that. It's a fact that with Smart, your credit lasts longer. You can call Smart to Smart and Smart to Digi using your promo credit, while with the other guy, you can only call OnNet, Digi, or BTL numbers. What does this mean? You get to call any national number using your promo credit. Your promo credit is free, so that call is also free. Know your facts. Don't be tricked by the other guy. Be smart and save your dollars.
And we're back.
Welcome back. Just like that, we're back, and we're now moving into our fourth and final segment for the morning. World Maritime Day 2021 is around the corner. It will be celebrated under the theme Seafarers at the Core of Shipping's Future. In to talk to us all about it, retired Major Gilbert Suazo, Ports Commissioner, Port of Belize, and Edmund Stain, Seafarer Manager at Imarbe Belize. Guys, good morning and welcome.
Thank you very much. A pleasant good morning, Marlene. Pleasant good morning, my brother.
Yeah.
It's always a pleasure to be here.
It's always nice to have you guys in. Seafarers. And I find it very important, especially reading what the theme is going to be, shipping's future. And a lot of people think that shipping, we take that for granted. It's not important. That's the feeling. Is that so?
Well, the maritime industry, and in particularly the ships in general, are considered to be like an invisible kind of industry.
Yeah.
Because even though we see most of the goods, the shirt we wear, the food we eat, the cars we drive.
Everything.
Like almost everything. And it is said that about 90% of the world trade takes place by through the sea.
Yeah.
And even though it takes, and we are a coastal country, we seems not to, by and large, associate the things that we wear, we eat, we drive, that we live in, coming from the sea.
Yeah.
And without that, we wouldn't perhaps be developed the way we are developed. Now, at the center of all that are the seafarers who make these ships move from one place to another. So those are very, very important link in the shipping industry.
And I think that, so World Maritime Day is an opportunity to look at all these agencies and their involvement, and kind of, you may see a ship, you may see a container, but all the people who are working behind the scenes making these mechanics flow. That's your seafarers. Those are people who are involved in this industry.
Yes.
Let's
And in Belize, if I may say, they are what is considered to be the flag state administration, and there is the coastal state administration.
Okay.
And the flag state is represented by Mr. Edmund Steen, and he can certainly explain that very shortly. And the coastal state responsibilities is done by the Belize Port Authority. Right, so there are seafarers within the flag state administration, and there are seafarers at the domestic level, and those are registered and documented by Belize Port Authority.
Well, great clarification. This is a really tough time for seafaring, especially during the COVID. Our fleet was one of the first fleets that got affected because we have a great amount of ships that trade in China. So when the first outbreak took place and we couldn't get crews repatriated because some of the crew are either from Myanmar, Philippines, other countries, and it was hard for us to try to liaise, to try to get them off. So we instantly sprung into action. You know, there was a circular that we sent out. We organized a task force among the senior deputy registrar, myself, some of the other technical guys, and we tried to see how we could help the seafarers on board. We had many requests for extensions of certificates, but we had to also look at the seafarers' employment agreements, which are the contracts for them on board, and also the insurance coverages that they had. So everything intertwined into one when dealing with one seafarer, because we have to look at the Maritime Labour Convention's requirements for them to have hours of rest, and then look at how that affects their contracts and how they're working, see if their COCs need to be extended. They come to us to try to have us extend their certificates of competences, but we can't extend those because we are not the ones that issue those. So we had to try to see if the administrations globally were putting out their circulars and giving the extension for these before we could apply our extension. Then we delay our ship because we need to make sure that these people get off. Then there are quarantine rules at every different state, so we had to research every different state to see what are the quarantine rules, if they can get the seafarers off, what are quarantine rules for getting seafarers on board. You know, so it's a lot of issues that we're facing with. Then I just got a request last week for a ship owner that wants to vaccinate his entire fleet. I have to explain to him that based on international requirements, we can't allow you to take everybody off the ship because there has to be familiarization of these positions when they go on board. So we have to work on gradual changing of them coming off. Then we have to look at the ports where they're trading to see if they can come off. No, some ship owners are run out of business because they have to go to other countries where they allow repatriation and they use up the gas. They deviate from their tour of duty for handling in cargo. So we also have one case that we're dealing with, I know of off the back of my mind, where a whole crew is abandoned in Taiwan. And we're trying to work through the diplomatic channels to try to get them out. The owner is out of business. He can't afford to maintain it. So we have to be encouraging all the ship owners to make sure they have their insurances up to date, make sure these seafarers are protected, try to get them off. We have some requests that came in for dispensation because if it's a master or chief engineer, we can't give extensions, we can't give. So we have to make sure we change the manning of the vessel for the intending voyage. You know, and then some people have parents that die, kids that die, they have outbreaks in their countries and they can't go back to their countries. So the psychological effects of these seafarers, you know, has been very great. So our work, and my work has doubled. I told Major, my work personally has doubled.
Is happening because that is from a coastal zone, well, a flag state standpoint. So COVID-19 pandemic essentially has disrupted the entire maritime trade. So now we have to see a restructuring of the entire maritime industry with a view that ships can continue to operate, and they have
even
to continue.
In a pandemic.
Yes, even a pandemic. So they have to continue to operate. If not, the entire global economic trade will collapse.
And thank you for that story, because I think where we have heard international reports so often of how global trade has been impacted by COVID-19, especially in the shipping industry, while we may be concerned, or businesses may be concerned on the impacts there, and even those who have registered the ship are concerned, it's the people.
It's the people.
The seafarers.
Yes, it
who
is.
are the ones who are bearing the brunt of all these changes and loss of business.
Yes, and families suffer as a result thereof. Okay, from a coastal zone standpoint, we do what is considered to be port state control. So at some point, we'll have to interface with those vessels and with those seafarers. And there are occasions, as mentioned by Mr. Steen, where we will have the requests for people to do the repatriation. That is one of the biggest challenges that the world is facing at this time specific for seafarers, as explained earlier. So we have to find ways within our immigration laws to be able to facilitate, along with the labor laws and our immigration law, to be able to facilitate the repatriation of seafarers, so that remember they are contract workers. They do work either 3 months to 12 months, depending on whatever the contract is. And even within that contract, they may be required to certainly change ship, right? Because the shipping operator may want them to be operating in a different shipping lane, right? So they have to change from one ship in a country to another. So again, those things are delayed. Those things, again, as a result of COVID-19, because of the restrictions for immigration and for labor, certainly put a severe disruption in the maritime trade.
Yeah, and then piracy as well. I think that would be one of those that people...
Well, that is separate and apart by itself.
I thought about it, while you were talking, I like, man, people must out there to try deal with them both. But guys, so this year you'll be celebrating under the theme Seafarers at the Core of Shipping Future, World Maritime Day. When is World Maritime Day and what's planned?
Well, World Maritime Day is slated for the 30th of September every year. And as you guys notice, the team, the IMO, of course, is trying to champion for every country to try to get on board. And so we have unimpeded shipping of goods and persons, because we also have passenger vessels that sail. And that's the reason why we've reached out to Channel 5 and to see how we could do a virtual event. If you guys know the events that we had before, it's always a huge event where we have all the schools.
On the ship.
We used to go on the ship and give tokens to who's here for Seafarers Day. And then for World Maritime Day, we had this huge event at the Port Authority's compound. I think a couple of years ago, we had the schools came in, we had all the maritime agencies have their booths, because we really want to share the industry with the people that doesn't know about it and see how we could definitely open it up for more business and open it up for young people to see at an early age what their stake could be within the industry. I mean, I didn't know about maritime before going to work at Port Authority the way I know about it now. And if I would have known from a younger age, I maybe wouldn't have wanted to be a fireman. I mean, I wanted to be a captain or something else. So this is what we're trying to open up to the people. There's so much potential within this industry. It's in its infancy stage. I mean, there's on the local level, as Major and I was discussing earlier, there's so many things we need to do with the implementation of the SCV code, and so many components of that are missing within our country that can be built for people to open up lucrative businesses from.
Great job opportunities.
Well, a good point, because what is evident is that more ships and larger ships are being built. And it is also evident from a survey that there are over 500,000 in terms of shortage of seafarers. So there is an opportunity for Belizeans. There's an opportunity for us to ensure that we have a maritime training center, that we can start training our people, right? So that they can be captains, they can be crewmen, right? And put them on board those vessels, because that opportunity exists in the world as we speak. And as a matter of fact,
do we know how many seafarers, Belizean seafarers, are working on ships internationally?
Oh, we don't have a definitive number. We have a good amount of Belizean seafarers, but it's not as much as the other countries. We are like probably the last when it comes to the total amount. And we're so deficient, because right now Panama has the biggest flag registry, and they created a system where 10% of their fleet has to be Panamanian. They can't even service the amount of people that they need to put on board. So Belize.
So in order to be registered through Belize, through Panama, you would have to have 10% of your crew
Jamaica
members.
has that same rule.
Jamaica has the same
and Belize right now, we are in a position where we could do that, but we don't have the supply. We don't have the maritime training center. So our thing right now, well, my office, I have to say, my office is responsible for the compliance package that we're going to submit. We have already redrafted the regulations, so it's just for us to put it together. Because what happened is they changed the criteria for us to accept these things. They now have a tacit acceptance procedure. So instead of you just going home and say you ratify the convention, you have to go home and create the system, present it back to the IMO, and then they have a panel of experts that review it, and then they will approve. And as long as they approve it, then we can implement. So that's actually where we are right now as a Marbe, because we have a huge audit coming up in 2023, where if we don't pass this audit, we're out of the game. So we need to get investments in the right way and the right area so that we could develop this thing and grow it to where all our kids could go and train, and we have a job for them. Because with the Seafarers Life, the Maritime Labour Convention mandates that you are flown out, you are fed, you are housed properly, and you're sent back home to where you come from.
And in humane conditions.
Yes, has to be.
Has to be.
Yeah.
So we have a shortage of seafarers. Is it because of the type of job, or is it that people don't really know what we do as a seafarer?
I think it's a combination of the two things, right? There's a combination. As I indicated earlier, that the maritime shipping industry is almost like an invisible industry.
Yeah.
Most people have a tendency to gravitate towards the terrestrial kind of environment, perhaps because of the fear. All right. So while, as I said earlier, that we are a country with a coastal country, you will notice that very few people are involved even at the local domestic maritime trade. Right? Not many at all. And we perhaps create some of the problem by not, well, we are still an infant as it relates to the maritime industry. So we now have the opportunity to develop the capacity, right, to be able to train at a domestic level our seamen. All right, then they can gradually be assimilated into the international trade. Right, but we have to have a start.
Yeah.
Right, and that start I would want to think is like today.
Yeah.
And they have Imarbe, which is the flag state. We have certainly Port Authority. And we do have other agencies like the Coast Guard that are also involved with maritime affairs and fisheries that are also involved with the same maritime trade.
Yeah, because they're part of the regulation, regulators that also...
They are stakeholders. As a matter of fact, we also do have shipping agents, right? So there are people who send freight, right? People who receive freight. So all these people are part and parcel of the maritime industry and different sectors that link. Right, even the transportation, the road, the modal, intermodal kind of transportation, right? Because with those containers, they have to move from off the ship onto land, then to a different direction inland. So it's a network of separate industries.
The shortage that you were mentioning has ballooned because a lot of people that were working as seafarers couldn't get on board their ships because the ships are at sea. They can't get repatriated, the old crew, so the new crew couldn't join. So people started to find other means of work in the meantime to try to maintain their family. And then even people that are slated to go on board, they're not so sure if they'll be able to repatriate it when their tour is over with the pandemic. So it has exacerbated this issue where we have people on board past the 12 months as allowed by MLC. And we have to give them extensions and work with the shipping agents, work with the people from the countries. And this guy is on board for an entire year on a ship. Please help us to get them off. So that's the gravity of the situation why IMO came out with this team. And this team is so fitting right now because they are the core of the future of shipping. Imagine not being able to have enough seafarers to send goods and supplies that are essential to certain countries. You know,
I think starting where we're starting with acknowledging how important it is for the global trade, and I don't mean just Belize, I mean across the globe. It really puts it all into perspective. So World Maritime Day is going to focus on seafarers. Seafarers across the world.
Yes.
Tell us a bit about what you hope people will be able to learn by participating in this virtual celebration.
Well, we certainly intend for people to understand the importance of the maritime trade to the world economy. I think that is critical and very, very important for everyone to understand. We also intend for people to understand the importance of seafaring within the industry, right? Because they are the focus, right? Ships are being built, but they cannot move without the intervention, without the seafarers having their hands on to move these vessels from point A to point B, right? The maintenance of those ships is very, very critical because if you don't maintain those ships well, then there can be maritime casualties, and casualties will lead to degradation of the maritime environment. So everything ties in, and we are looking at climate change, and you don't want to end up contributing to it. The IMO at this time is also focusing on decarbonization for shipping. That's one of the big things that is happening these days. So again, That, in terms of decarbonization, is linked towards the climate change kind of strategy agenda with a view now to reduce the carbon by 2050, right? The carbon that is emitted by vessels.
Yeah.
So there's a lot that is going on, but we want to focus on the seafarer, what the seafarer does, the challenges that the seafarers are facing, and how we intend to deal with most of those challenges with a view to ensure that the maritime trade continue to be what it is, because we cannot, as a world, we cannot, as a country, do without it.
Fantastic.
So when is this celebration? What time? Yeah, and how are we going to celebrate it?
Well, we will be having a virtual activity, right, that is hosted by Channel 5.
Yes.
It starts certainly at 10 a.m. on Thursday, and it will continue up to, I think, an hour or hour plus. As I said, it will be virtual, but we'll have opportunity for people to participate actively during that same time.
That's right. They can ask their questions about opportunities that exist. And I understand there's some giveaways as well.
Definitely, yeah. Thanks to the Port Authority.
So that's what, a ship? You giving away a ship?
Giving away a boat. No, I also must take this opportunity to certainly extend our sincere gratitude to other stakeholders within the maritime field, because without them, we would not certainly have been able to get some of these goodies that we will be sharing to contribute to those people who would answer some of these questions. But the intent is not for the gift or the token that you'll be getting, but to sort of focus on maritime industry and on the seafarers and the importance of seafarers to the maritime industry.
All right. Retired Major Gilbert Suazo and Edmund Steen, guys, thank you so very much. Enlightening this morning, and we look forward to celebrating tomorrow at 10, live on 5.
Definitely, it's certainly our pleasure, and thanks very much to Channel 5.
All right, we need to take a break. We need to take our final break of the morning. When we come back, we'll be wrapping things up. Stay with us. We will be right back.
We have been a partner with Smart for over 10 plus years. We have a full Smart plan we use as our major driver for our business. We have a service that rolls over, in that if you call one and it is busy, it rolls over to the next line. So once you call us, you can get us at any time. Before we got this Smart service, we were paying upwards of nearly $2,000 in phone bills. Since we've had our Smart service, we pay an average of about $600. So we've had tremendous saving, more than 50%. For the businesses, if you want to save money, switch to Smart, because it is far more cost effective and the service is excellent.
Smart continues to be innovative in bringing new technology and meaningful savings during these challenging times to businesses across Belize. Sign up for our VoIP technology or broadband packages and save more.
Hello, welcome to Samsung's awesome experience right here in Belize. Come check it out. Not sure which Samsung Galaxy A series is right for you? Touch, play, and learn about your device before you buy. Once you've purchased your device, you can now benefit from the full Samsung service experience. Your phone is covered by a 1-year local warranty. This includes manufacturer defects and software and hardware issues caused by the manufacturer. Enjoy your phone with peace of mind knowing that your Galaxy is protected. And when your warranty expires, you can still bring it to our certified Samsung Repair Center. Our technicians will diagnose and repair your device with Samsung original parts and machinery. Enjoy the Samsung experience when you shop at any of our authorized partners countrywide, including Cellular World, Digi, Odette's Home Center, Debari, Quartz, Shopagas, Gadgets, and Cellular Plus. Join the Samsung experience in Belize today.
The maritime industry is the main connector for global trade. Even in a worldwide pandemic, shipping has continued to transport more than 80% of world trade, including vital medical supplies, food, and other essential goods critical for the COVID-19 response. World Maritime Day provides the opportunity to highlight shipping and other maritime activities in Belize and across the globe. The Belize Port Authority, Imarbe, and Belize Coast Guard invite you to join them for the virtual celebration of World Maritime Day under the theme Seafarers at the Core of Shipping's Future. Join the event on Channel 5, Facebook, or YouTube on Thursday, September 30th at 10 a.m.
Good morning, sweetie. It's time for school.
Are you a teacher or public sector employee who is thinking of owning your new home? Get the keys to your new home with Belize Bank's all-inclusive mortgage, the best financing option in Belize for your new home purchase or construction. Inclusive of all mortgage-related fees, no down payment, affordable terms, amazingly low interest rates. Visit our nearest branch to speak to one of our financial advisors to discuss how you can be one step closer to owning your new home. Some conditions apply.
We're back.
Just like that, we're back and we've got to go. We had an extended day today. We do hope that you enjoyed all the conversations today. Like we mentioned, it would have been a packed but very, very interesting one. I always say, Marlene, that without the folks, without you there at home, this is not possible. And so we're so glad that you're able to start your morning right with us. If you've got any questions, any concerns, drop us a line at oye@channel5belize.com.
Find us on Facebook at Open Your Eyes BZ and on Instagram at OYEBelize. Remember to tune in tomorrow morning at 6:30. Don't worry, it happened to me yesterday.
I know.
when you open your eyes.
To start your morning right, as per usual, keep your eyes, your minds,
and your heart open. We'll see you soon. Enjoy your day, please.
Open Your Eyes was brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.